Any more rubbish you're going to put it?
If everyone could be seated, please. Thank you. Inga mana, inga reo, tira koutou katoa, rangatira mā, kia ora koutou, welcome. Very warm welcome to our councillors. Councillor Barbara on Zoom today, and all of our councillors are in chamber. Very warm welcome to you this 4th of August meeting. Great to see members of our public here, our community, staff. Thank you for all your work bringing this agenda to us today. And it's been another large month for the month of July, and some of the highlights for us. And can I acknowledge the councillors who helped when I was sick last week, attending duties like openings, events, things on my behalf. I really appreciate that. And we've had the opening of Kāweka Hospital, which is very, very exciting for our region. We've had the opening of the Royston Day Surgery, and the new technology suite at Here Tauranga Intermediate, the opening of Wharf 6. We farewell Dr. Ashley Bloomfield. We've welcomed the Big Apple project. We have had, and this weekend, of course, we've got the great excitement of the reopening for our community as we open the municipal buildings. So it is a very exciting time for us all. Can I just start our meeting today from our Pastor Matthew Johnston from the Riverbend Bible Church. And Matthew, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you. My apologies for anybody who is watching our meeting today online that we are running late. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. I've been here many times over the years and always counted a joy to be here. We're thankful for all that you guys do, and I would like to make this prayer a reading of Psalm 139 this time. As Christians, we believe when the Bible speaks, God speaks, and this is what God's word says to us here. It says, "O God, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You understand my thought from afar. You scrutinize my path and my lying down, and are intimately acquainted with all my ways. Even before there is a word on my tongue, behold, you, O God, you know it all. You've enclosed me behind and before, and you've put your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is too high, I cannot attain to it. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, behold, you are there. If I lift up the wings of the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even your hand will lead me, and your right hand will lay hold of me. If I say, surely darkness will bruise me, and the light around me will be night, even the darkness is not too much for you, and the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are alike to you. For you formed my inward parts, you wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame is not hidden from you. When I was made in secret and intricately woven in the depths of the earth, your eyes have seen my unshaped substance, and in your book all of them were written, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was not one of them. How precious are your thoughts to me, O God! How vast is the sum of them! If I should count them, they would outnumber the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. O men of bloodshed, depart from me. For they speak against you wickedly, and your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you? And do I not revile those who rise up against you? I hate them with the utmost hatred. They have become your enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxious thoughts, and see if there be any hurtful way in me, and lead me in the everlasting way." And so says God's holy, inerrant, and inspired word. We appreciate you, we thank you, and we praise this, and we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you for coming in. Now invite our Hastings Ambassador, Councillor Kenari O'Keefe, to follow up with a waiata.
Te aroha. Te aroha. E whakapono. E te rangimba. I e tau e ano. Te aroha. E whakapono. E te rangimba. I e haramai te toki. Haumie huie.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Thank you, everyone, for that beautiful waiata. We have apologies and leave of absence. Any leave of absence required? Apologies from lateness from Councillor Ollie. Councillor Sholem? Oh, Councillor Lawson.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Could I please request leave of absence for the 1st and 2nd of September?
Thank you. Councillor Sholem?
Thank you, Worship. Also requesting leave of absence from the 29th until the 31st of August.
Thank you. Councillor Sears?
Thank you, Mayor Sandra. Leave of absence Thursday, the 11th of August.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you. Friday, the 12th of August, please.
Thank you. Happy to move from the chair that those leave of absence be accepted. Moved by councillor Dixon, seconded councillor Redstone. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Conflicts of interest, if I can just remind everybody to declare them as we come to them, if they're at the appropriate time. Now we move on to item 4, and this is that the minutes of the 30th of June be confirmed as an accurate record. Moved by councillor Watkins, seconded by councillor Sears. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Item number 5, very, very warm welcome to Kitty, and this is the Tupuhui Community Plan. Debbie and JR, Denise, are you coming forward to present this paper? And we welcome Kitty to come forward, and Councillor Kerr, you may like to introduce this paper.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a wee summary. Let's take a community where the forestry camp is closed, the toilet block has closed, the hall has been closed for 10 years, the pullover rest area on the main highway has been fenced off and closed, the play centre has closed, the pub has closed. Then add some energy, some business skills, amazing people and community passion. Lead it with Kitty and you have an outstanding community plan. So it's my incredible honour to introduce Kitty and her family after the staff have spoken, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Kia ora, JR.
Kia ora, ana, talofa lava malolelei. First of all, I just want to welcome Kitty and her whānau and her extended whānau here today for this momentous occasion. It's been a long journey that we've been on. Kitty reminded me when she first presented this proposal, it was 3 years ago. So I'd have to say that I'm proud to be the one of the a co-owner of a community plan that's taken 3 years to get to this point today. Probably the longest community plan in terms of work to be involved. It just shows how much work that from the start right through to where we are today. And this is the result. And Kitty here has been overall true leader from the community to get this plan up and going. Like I said before, it's a real journey that we've been through. We've had some hiccups, some barriers we've jumped over, we've pushed through, we've ran around, and some of them we've just avoided completely and just left that. And we'll come back to that in another place. But just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and of course acknowledge Kitty and her family.
Kia ora, thank you, JR. Kitty, would you like to give us some highlights of your community's plan?
Thank you very much, Mayor Sandra. And JR, thank you for your warm welcome. I'd like to firstly acknowledge my family, so my mother Vilma and my father Wayne, my father-in-law Ashley and my mother-in-law Jocelyn. Without these people, I would not be able to undertake the work I do for my community. They are my stalwarts and my anchors, and I really appreciate them. And I really wanted them to be present today to be acknowledged for their participation in their work in my life. So thank you, mum and dads, mums and dads, and my little ones. Roderick is sitting there, and Rose is sitting there on the steps. So I sort of see my life and my life journey as being between the two puna in life. So you have your tipuna and you have your mokopuna. And for me, and my place in my journey, and my passion is about being in the middle of those two things and preparing for the future and acknowledging the past. So in Te Pahui, I could see a real need within our community, and it came down to, an acknowledgement of the fact that there was a general perception there that their rates were not returning to the rural community. And this journey of undertaking a community plan has really turned that perception around, I'm pleased to say. And we have probably about 25 points in the plan that we have prepared for, and we've already started undertaking a lot of those points already. So in the last 6 months, we have incorporated a charitable trust to manage and maintain our community hall. We have reignited our community hall. It now has running water and running electricity, and we have been holding community events since Anzac Day. So the Anzac morning ceremony was our first ceremony. And I'm really, really blown away by the enthusiasm and the utter revitalisation that's occurring within our community, all through this community plan being launched. I think it was 3 years ago we started consultations, and we would have started with maybe 20 people in the room, and that steadily grew over a number of weeks to around about 60, 70 people. And we had parties from Rainier Matariki, New Zealand Police, New Zealand Transport Agency, Council, and community clubs and community members. This has been a real journey for our entire community, and I'm pleased and I believe that this document, this community plan, really acknowledges the goals, the ambitions and the desires of our entire community. I'd like to also acknowledge Ngāti Haniuru and Mangahururu Tangitu. They were part of our journey as well. I don't feel like they've necessarily received the acknowledgement that they need to in this document, but I feel like this is a journey, a living document that we can continue to review and build upon, and I look forward to the next iteration in 3-4 years' time. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Thank you very much, Kitty. Councillor Kerr, did you want to add anything?
I look at where we came from and the aspirations of the community, and I get a real sense that nothing can stop them now. And if they can dream it, I believe this community can try and achieve it. I think we're very, very fortunate to have Kitty and her support network in the Te Puhi district community, because it does range from my perspective, as far down as Glengarry Road, right the way through to past Tarawera Cafe and the roads that go off. It's a vast area. So once again, to just acknowledge Kitty.
Thank you.
And the new trustees of the new charitable trust. Thank you.
Would you like to move the recommendations, Councillor Kerr? Councillor Lawson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to acknowledge Curry's work and her leadership, and also just congratulate the community and being able to pull that community together and having all these aspirations in this community plan. And, you know, I note that a community plan is only as good as its actions, and gosh, you've already ticked off quite a few of those actions. So well done and congratulations. And would you like to move?
Please, move, Your Worship.
And I'd like to second.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you to you both. And just to reiterate what you've just said, and I've loved my journey as the mayor with Kitty, and, you know, only a community member on the 23rd of December has us presenting to a national agency, Waka Kotahi, and launching a petition on the 80k speed limit 2 days before Christmas when you're trying to do your Christmas shopping. But no, we all pulled together and we got a petition launched. So, and I just want to acknowledge from the meetings that I've attended at the school hall, at the golf course, and at the new hall, which has just been gifted over, and the passion, the change that is occurring, the new people that I met that have moved to the area. It was really, really interesting. And so what happens when you get leadership in a community, in a particular rural community, and bring people together and have a plan, then all of a sudden people decide this is a nice place to live. And I was, you know, fascinated and interested to talk to the new people in the community. So Kitty, I applaud your amazing work, and it takes, as Councillor Lawson said, true leadership to be able to bring a community together to deliver and also have items that have been completed before the plan's been adopted is quite exceptional. So thank you for your wonderful work. Keep up the great work in the community, bringing everyone together. That trust that you've formed is outstanding. I look forward to the developments around in the hall and very excited to see some of these actions being implemented. So well done to everybody. Thank you very much. We have a mover and a seconder. I put that item. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Well done, everyone. And can I acknowledge JR and Debbie and Regan and all the staff that have been part of this journey with this plan. There's been Danny. There's been so many officers that have been up there looking at, there's been Craig, and I probably missed someone out, but there's been so many of our staff that have been up there making things happen in Tūpohui. So thank you to you all. We move on now to item 6, and welcome to Denise, the Community Plan Kete. Councillor Lawson, do you want to say anything about this piece of work that we went through for Great Communities?
Thank you, Worship. Just to commend the staff on putting together this community plan kite. It's a piece that was missing, I think, in the whole community plan structure, and it's incredibly valuable. It will guide our communities as to how the process works, how they can actually apply for funding, and also it provides us with a really nice, structure of how to actually manage the community plan. So, yeah, well done, and I'm very, very happy to move the recommendations. I think it's a fantastic document, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
And I
Lawson.
particularly like the budget part at the end.
Awesome. Denise, did you want to add anything to the paper?
Thank you, through you, the Worship. Actually, everything Councillor Lawson was going to say is on my notes here.
Oh, look at that.
So I'm
Perfect.
we're open for any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll take questions. Councillor Sholem?
Thank you, Worship. Would again like to just reiterate and support Councillor Lawson's comments, and very happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Travers?
At the risk of sounding like the bad fairy at the christening, I do really want to express my extreme frustration through having been a more than 20-year resident of Mahora and failing to grasp that a community plan was underway. After the fact, I found a tatty A4 piece of paper attached to the cake shop. I have gone all the way through the council feed on Facebook. There is no reference whatsoever to community plans. In the last couple of years, I have been engendering support around the community for our community plan, and I am now left feeling somewhat embarrassed because all the people whose enthusiasm I had engendered are now left frustrated. I know there is now a place on the council website to be able to feed in, but the availability of that needs to be advertised.
Thank you. I'll just ask, is there a comms plan around the new Mahora community consultation?
Thank you, through you, the Chair. There has been a communications plan for the Mahora plan, which has been through social media, from what I understand, letterbox drops, engagement through the school, but we'll certainly follow up on that for you as an action.
Thank you. Councillor Redstone?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, Denise, about Whakatū concluded with one outstanding action. I think I need to be informed probably, so can you just tell me what that is, please?
Through you, Your Worship, if we can come back to you with that one, Councillor Redstone, and Councillor Corbin as well. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much. Councillor Sholem?
Thank you, Worship. I just wonder if now's an opportune moment to relay some of the conversation that had happened at the last Great Communities meeting, where we have talked about and feedback, and it sounds wonderful that it's going to happen for the next triennium, where councillors will be able to, trumpet specific community plans and help lead those. So I know the team's very much on that. And I would like to acknowledge, whilst I respect Councillor Travis's, I identified some holes potentially within the communications. It was well in my face in terms of through school communications, going to the water shops and whatnot. So, however, it is always good to continue to improve. So it's great to hear.
Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could I also be updated on the draft for the Bridge Park Community Plan and where that's at? And I was under the understanding that Whakatū's plan term had expired and they were coming up for a new plan.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So we are currently working with the Whakatū community to identify if they want to do another plan or not. So Paddy's under action with that.
Great, thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. No further comments or any other questions? So congratulations to everyone who is working there. And I think those action points of making sure that we have leadership from the governance table to implement the plans is a very good one, is a good action. Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Item number 7 is the Community Engagement Framework. Welcome to Naomi. Very, very excited to see this community engagement framework coming to our top table. This is one of the most important parts of our job, is making sure our community fully understands the business that we represent them doing, and this is a very exciting framework for us to consider, work through, add to, change in the future, both today and the future, but this is a start. Naomi, would you like to introduce your paper?
Through you, Chair. The Community Engagement Framework is really starting to formalise something that we have been moving towards as a council over the last number of years. It's recognising the increasing expectations from our community about the way in which we communicate and engage with them, and bringing them on the journey far earlier in the design phase. This framework also enables us internally to have a consistent narrative around what community engagement means, becoming a familiar vernacular and embedding engagement in our thinking practices from the start. This document is not an exclusion of all the other commitments we have as legal obligations, legal and our obligations under Te Reti o Waitangi. This is there to support and lift the experience for our community to deliver better outcomes. By using this framework, it is hoped that through better decision making, planning in the upfront and working with our community, the decisions we come to in terms of delivering for our community will be of a better quality, and they'll reduce the risk of getting it wrong and having to go back and spend time and money and create risk for council because we hadn't brought the community along with us. This framework is a living document. It is a starting place for us on our journey in terms of our community engagement. Yeah. At the recent LGNZ conference, there was a lot of discussion around bringing in the different languages for it. Community assembly was one, about how we actually bring that community conversation in early in the thinking place. This document supports that and enables it. It is based around the International Association for Public Participations framework, which looks across a spectrum for engagement. There are times where it isn't suitable for us to simply inform people. It's BAU, it's just courtesy to let them know we'll be working outside their house for a few hours or a day, through to a more fulsome process called empowerment, which is where we are going to the community and asking them to develop it. This is not new for council, it's just the language we put around it. Community plans are actually a fantastic example of that because it is community driven. So it's just really wrapping a framework. It's not necessarily changing the way we do things, it's actually formalising it, making it available for our community to understand it as a commitment from us as council about how we will work with them, and for our staff to understand that expectation as well. To support this, there will be an internal staff guide developed, which will have some tools and some workflows for them to help in the design community engagement into their projects. And we'll also develop one for our councillors, which will be part of the new councillor orientation program following the upcoming elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the chair or the deputy chair of Great Communities like to add anything to this amazing engagement framework, as community framework?
Yeah.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor
I
Harvey?
will. Can I ask a question or suggest a change first? And sorry, I've only just picked this up. But on page 15, under elected representatives, it is a question, but for inclusion, but we've got act as a channel between the community and council, e.g. using the councillor information request email, so that's us. People have reached out to us, we're asking the questions which usually defer back to council officers. So I think there needs to be something under the council staff that actually notes that, so that we have got that two-way. I did write something up which was responsive information provided back to elected representatives following requests from them, from the information request email or something along those kind of lines. But I just think that then closes off that gap. And then just a general comment, and we were involved in the process of developing this, and it is an excellent document, and it just paves the way for future team members and the like who come in and can actually pick this up, and they know that they've got what is pretty much a guideline Bible to really engage. And the other aspect of that is that not to forget the creativity that is also required around engagement, because engagement can be death by so many strokes. So it's just making sure that there is that creative aspect to it. So fantastic, well done to the team for everything that's been pulled together with this. Thanks. And I'd like to move. Thank you. And a second. You second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And I agree, and it's a very good addition to add there. And so we just will add that into B. And now I'll go to Councillor Barber.
Yeah, kia ora, kia ora tātou. Yeah, I think it's a good document. The guiding principles for engagement with Māori, I think that's really important. We haven't always got that right, and to have some guidelines on that, especially the role that Te Tiriti Waitangi plays in terms of our responsibility to engage and how we do that, I think is really important. So yeah, just want to highlight that section in the policy document as a key bit of guidance for our council going forward. And I guess the question for you, Naomi, is where was there an opportunity for Māori to kind of input into those principles? I like them, and I think they're good. And I just like whether our Māori Joint Committee or somewhere else has been able to help guide it.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for that, Baden. And the section on Māori engagement was contributed through our Cultural Heritage and Responsiveness team, so Dr. James Graham and Charles Rupatini. And certainly, as I said, a living document, so if there is any improvements or as we continue to evolve that relationship, we're welcome to have input and feedback in through Here Tonga Takatanoa.
Yeah, I think as a matter of course that it just be passed through it for their eyes to have a look. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Baden. I think that is a very good action to take I don't think it needs to be added to a recommendation, but I think it needs to be added to the agenda of Heretaunga Takatono for their feedback. Take that as an action, thank you. And if we could just put that addition to recommendation B. Thank you. That the council adopt the community engagement framework and notes the officers will implement changes raised in the council meeting. Is that specific enough? Can everyone at the mover and seconder comfortable with that? Yes? Right. Okay, thank you very much. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Very warm welcome now to Dean Ferguson, the Joint Smoke-Free and Vape-Free Policy Review, item number 8. Welcome, Dean. This is the joint policy with Napier. And a lot of work has gone into it, and Councillor Sears has done a lot of work with the Napier councillors. Councillor Ollie was on that working party, and we had a good workshop to understand if we'd gone far enough. It's one of those policies that unintended consequences of smoke-free Aotearoa 2025 and how vaping has overtaken smoking in our communities. And we can note that by 3 new vape shops setting up in 1 block in our city. So this policy, it hasn't been easy. And Councillor Sears, did you want to speak at the moment, or you wait? All right, welcome, Dean, if you want to present your paper.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. This paper is in regards to the smoke-free, vape-free policy. So, as Your Worship, you've stated, there's been a lot of work that's gone on around this, a lot of community interest in regards to the policy and the potential revisions that we've put forward today. So we've had, over the period of time, first consultation, we had 707 submissions from the public, and we had 105 organisations and businesses that also submitted in order to sort of feed into the potential changes that we've put forward today. And then on the back of that, once the revision of the policy had been completed, we then went back out and received further feedback in regards to those changes, which are detailed in the paper today. As you've acknowledged, vaping has become an issue and has become the, I guess, the new norm for sort of, I guess, genre throughout, from teenagers right through, and it is promoted through the Ministry of Health website as a alternate to smoked tobacco products. So we're sort of fighting against looking at the smoked tobacco products and also then vaping, but vaping becoming more prevalent these days. So the policy itself sets out to look at what council's role is, identifying areas that we could potentially sort of educate and promote. It is a non-punitive policy, so therefore there is no enforcement action that we can take on it, but it is around the education piece. So happy to take any questions on it.
Thank you. Dean, can you just outline the question that was asked at the workshop about how we are role models, how council is a role model around Toi Toi Arts and Events Centre, and how we manage that?
Sure, yeah, through you, Your Worship. So at this stage, we've identified the laneways within Toi Toi as being smoke-free, vape-free areas. I've also been in consultation with the Toi Toi staff in regards to, obviously with the municipal building, official opening and businesses that opened there, around what we can do to better educate patrons and customers of that particular building, acknowledging there are limitations to the fact that obviously the building is hard up against the footpath, therefore you're going to get your general sort of thoroughfare of traffic, foot traffic walking through there as well. We can only really sort of try and educate and control, I guess, the behaviour of people through events that we host and through signage and education.
Thank you. Can I just make a note that and I've been into 2 different event centres in the last 2 weeks, when people give the health and safety report at the beginning of the introduction, I think it's really appropriate, and I've heard it twice, that people say, the MCs say, smoking away from the event centre. And I think that's, and we've got our Toi #1 dynamic team in the chamber today. And I think it's really, really appropriate that we think about how that happens, because when I attend our Toi events just about every other day, we know where people smoke currently. So I think that is what I've listened to, what has happened in other parts, and I think that we need to be showing some leadership in this area. I have some questions. Councillor Watkins.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So the fundamental purpose of this policy is it what? Is it aesthetics, that it doesn't look good for people to vape in these areas? Is it that passers-by who don't vape and smoke don't have to encounter these people? Or is it just to say to the people who do smoke and vape, you can't do it in this particular spot? What is the fundamental drive?
Through you, Worship. Look, I'd say it's a combination of all three. We are trying to identify areas that we don't want to promote smoking and vaping or have it seen as where people congregate. So we are trying to ensure that if it does happen, then it's not in areas where people are going to be stationary for periods of time. We're also trying to sort of promote the fact that council doesn't support smoking and vaping within our sort of around our premises, our bus stops, playgrounds, reserves, other areas identified within the policy itself. But like I say, it's more around that education piece. We do have to accept the fact that part of society do smoke and vape. So therefore, we just have to ensure that we try and restrict that or restrict promotion of that.
Thank you for that answer. But when I look at the map here in the CBD, the areas that we've highlighted in red, 1%, 2% of our CBD, if for the reasons you suggest we're doing this, why can someone vape here and take 2 steps around the corner and amongst all the people walking through our CBD and shopping, and it's okay? I mean, I guess I'm hoping that in the next review, we start to be brave about this. And if we really mean it, put a line around the CBD, define an area that people understand. When they come across the border in that area, this is it. I think it's very difficult, probably for smokers and vapers, to understand small little segments of lanes throughout the CBD.
Through your worship. During the discussions with the joint working group between Napier and Hastings, obviously the retail sector was discussed. We've been through sort of 2 years of uncertainty through COVID, and we're also going through sort of periods of recovery within our sort of retail sector. That's taken into consideration also the fact infringing on people's rights and trying to prevent that. All we can do is sort of educate and try and limit on areas that we sort of own or potentially control and try and educate through that way. So it is, like I said, it's a non-punitive approach, but there are a number of knock-on effects if we were to have a blanket approach to the complete CBD as such.
Thank you, Dean. And can I ask Councillor Sears, who's been working on this, to come forward at the moment, and then we'll take other questions and comments. Thank you.
I think it's quite important to understand that smoking and health-related effects aren't within council's responsibilities. In fact, this is led by the government and by the DHB.
Put your mic on, Councillor. I can't hear you.
Oh, it is on. Can't, yeah, oh yeah, thank you. So really our role here is that as a joint working group, we support the government's drive to smoke-free Aotearoa 2025. And our drive within that, the very small piece within that, is for us to look to not demonstrate smoking in areas or in ways that promote smoking. And that's actually a very, very small area of influence, and it's also very important, as we've recognised through the working group, as does the DHB, as do all the partners we worked with, actually, that smoking and vaping are not illegal. People are welcome to do those. So we have quite a small area of influence, and we've tried to balance that in this review to create areas, particularly where we think that it will influence younger people, that we are trying to take smoking and vaping out of that, and certainly areas that we have control over. So I think it's quite important. We picked up quite a lot of stuff. We as Mayor Sandra said, we had a really good workshop on this. We picked up a few points. I remember Councillor Harvey, we've added, there's been an addition around any new laneways will automatically fall under this, so the areas that are council owned. But I think that everybody needs to be aware that this policy is a very small part of a government and health initiative that we need to be respectful of, as Dean says, of our ratepayers and their rights and our sphere of influence. And I think that the review paper has done a really good job of balancing those things. And as you note, over 800 submissions with all these partners all felt that we'd got that balance right.
Thank you, Councillor Sears. Councillor Watkins, you comfortable with that?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. If I could just reply to that. You know, I'm not saying that people can't smoke and vape. I want you to compare, you say we can't do this in a blanket way. What about skateboarders? It's not illegal to skateboard, but we had no trouble in putting signs up, no skateboarders in the CBD, because we provided a skate park for them. You know, I think that's a similar consideration.
So, Councillor Watkins, are you suggesting what are you recommending?
Well, I think vaping is becoming a big issue. I read about it in the paper, I see it on TV, we see it in the reports. I would love to see a blanket around our CBD, that there was no vaping in the CBD, full stop. Just like we did with skateboarders. You can get to the park other ways, but you don't transverse through the CBD to get to the skate park. And I think we should do that with vaping.
So it would have been helpful if you were at the workshop, because it's a joint policy with Napier, and so the team could have taken that recommendation through before time of adoption of policy. Dean, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, through you, Worship. So through the, just going to make sure I get the right one. So it's the Smoke-Free Environments and Regulated Products Amendment Bill. There's the vaping part of that, and there's a whole series of actions and timeline that's been put in place to try and start restricting your transitional sort of retailers and your general retailers as well around the vaping products, which includes reducing the potency of the vape product, trying to take away the attractiveness of it, and also trying to regulate who can sell, so it's actually becoming a more auditable system in regards to providing that. So there are restrictions that are slowly coming into place, but I think that we've sort of acknowledged that e-cigarettes have now moved to vaping. Vaping sounds pretty cooler, and a lot of people have taken it up, and it's an issue for MOE through the schools. It's an issue for the DHB as well, and we're as part of this paper and part of the actions that are coming out of it, and part of the joint working group, we'll be putting in place an implementation plan to start addressing some of these in a collaborative approach.
So when will we review this again, Dean? 3 years, is it?
Yeah.
3 years, okay. Right, so that's aspiration. Councillor Lawson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I'd like to just respond by saying that, as Councillor Sears said, there were some really, specific constraints when the working group looked at this, and I want to acknowledge the staff and the councillors that put a lot of time and effort into this and worked very well with our partners, Napier City Council. Whilst I was down at the LGNZ conference, it was really heartening to see that we were one of the most progressive districts in terms of our smoke-free policy, and that was prior to this review. So we are streets ahead of a lot of the regions. So I think we're doing really well in this space. I know there's always room for improvement, and those aspirations in sight with the next review. I also note that submissions are due by the 24th of August for the amendment bill, and I'm sure that we will be submitting on that. So that's an action to happen. So I'm very happy actually to to move the recommendations.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sears, thank you. Councillor Barber?
Kia ora no tātou. I commend having a policy, that's a good start. But I see the stuff as a scourge on our community, just as smoking has been. If you look at the stats, Māori are twice as likely to vape. Non-Māori 15%, Māori 30%. And I'm really concerned about our young people getting into vaping. I see it all the time. Kids are vaping on the way to school. And yeah, I mean, it's a big issue, and I mean, we are playing a small role in it, but I think there's got to be a bigger plan around it to dissuade our young people from taking up the vape. And if we can look at how we might limit the vaping shops opening up in our CBDs, I think that would be a good thing. They're flashy, got all the flashlights, and if you look at the onset of gambling, flashlights and how that thing kind of operates in people's psyche, I see the vape as a similar vice, as similar marketing, and unfortunately, Māori are picking it up twice as much as everyone else. So I want to see that stuff out. I'd support Kevin a CBD free of vape free, and at the next review, I think that's where we need to be heading to.
Kia ora, Baden. And I think that,
I'll leave it there.
I think
Yeah.
we take that as an action that we ask Mr O'Shaughnessy to look at our policy in terms of, and we did this with the psychoactive substance a few years ago, where these shops should be going, and drove them out of town actually. So this is something really important for the government to be looking at, and because we've created a different kind of an issue than what we had with smoking, because we've got younger people now smoking. So I think that we take that as an action, that we ask Mr O'Shaughnessy to bring back what we can do in terms of bylaws, in terms of where shops should go, and consider that. So can we take that as an action? Thank you. You comfortable with that approach?
Well, can I comment?
Yep, I like that. Kia ora, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Travis?
I absolutely applaud any measures designed to improve community health. I did see, and this is somewhat tangential, I did see that most of the Waikato councils and many other councils around New Zealand have endorsed the private members bill put forward by Chloe Swarbrick around the ability of alcohol sellers to be able to appeal against judgments. And I wondered whether this council had any intention to endorse also in line with the other councils, because this is an issue that has long vexed us here in Hastings.
All right. Come back to you about that. Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, kia ora, Your Worship. Kia ora tātou katoa. I think, although I applaud our efforts in this instance, no amount of policy or legislation is going to get us out of this. It doesn't go deep enough, nor should it. It's about communities, families taking ownership and responsibility. That's where it needs to happen, in the home. That's the alpha and omega. Whether they vape, we're quite hypocritical, really. We push vaping out, but we bring alcohol in. So I don't know. That's hypocritical, in my opinion. But it's taking a look at the reasons behind why do they resort to artificial stimulants? Why do they? Is there something missing in their lives? Do they need healing or restoring or uplifting? That's what we need to look at. And you can bring the churches in, bring them all in. What we're doing now, you can applaud that. You can push them out to Timbuktu. No matter where you put it, they're going to go get it. Because they have this unquenchable thirst within to resort to this addiction. And thank you, Dean, for all you do. We've had this conversation before. And but I don't have a solution. Well, I do really. But whether you're evangelically inclined, let us pray. Let us bend the knee and look skyward. So, but those are my comments.
Kia ora. Thank you, Hinari. Councillor Sears, I know that you are chomping at the bit to answer a number of the concerns that have been
not really
raised.
chomping at the bit. I just think it's very important to understand that around this table, we had a number of Māori health providers. We had the DHB, we had the Cancer Society, we had a huge amount of input from our community. And our Māori health providers in particular are in a position where they are pushing towards smoke-free 2025, and they are utilising vaping to achieve this. And they believe that the vaping is a far better position for them to be in than smoking. So this policy is also at the edge for them. So I don't actually think it's appropriate for us to be trying to resolve that issue. If there's such a desire around this table to really look deeper into bans or whatever, I would recommend that the conversation is actually had with the health providers and the government through the submission process around those bigger pictures, because I really don't think they're our role, and we didn't feel it was our role in the joint working group to go against the advice from the people who are trying to deal with the problem on the coalface.
Thank you, Councillor Sears.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Pelletti, I'd like to ask you to bring your views forward from the Working Party.
Most definitely. Just to throw a spin in the works, I myself am a vapor. So I'm going to be speaking, like I did in our Working Party, from a point of view of a vapor. I lost my brother a year ago, and my vice was to turn to smoking, because that's where I felt my comfort, especially during a really depressing time of losing a loved one so close as my brother. I turned to smoking, but then smoking became very expensive. The alternative was vaping. It's a lot cheaper than smoking, and I'm not trying to promote it. I'm just saying a lot of families who can't afford the necessities often choose to get their fix through something that's addictive, like drinking and smoking cigarettes or even marijuana. Vaping is a lot safer than, I'm not saying it's the best vice to have, but that's an alternative where people feel they can relieve some of that stress within their families and their communities. But going forward, I eventually do want to quit vaping, as I expressed in our working group, and there's working together as a collective to try and find the best way forward for our community. And I do agree with some of the points that Kevin has made, but that's where I put it down to, is a lot of families just can't afford smokes anymore. I do want to move one point, is to relocate our smoking area, because I go and vape in my car, because kids across the street can see my afro. So that's kind of like them saying, oh, Pelletti's smoking, he's vaping, that's cool. So I just want to suggest to move our smoking area, especially with our white aroha that'll be coming soon as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. Councillor Nixon?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I've got 3 points I'd like to make. I was not on the working group, so some of this may have been covered by them. And you raised the point of psychoactive substances or synthetic cannabis, and we sort of came up with a plan, as you pointed out, that was very successful in sort of moving it on and moving it out. And I just struggle to understand why we couldn't do something similar to that. Don't answer the question yet, just let me keep going. I do wonder have we just replaced smoking with vaping? In other words, are the numbers essentially the same, or is there some overall reduction? Because this is part of Smoke-Free Aotearoa, Smoke-Free New Zealand, the government's plan, 225, I think it is. And so I'm just wondering, are we really making progress or not? And just to sort of comment almost along with Ollie, the one thing about having vaping shops in town is at least you can see them, you can see what's going on, you get some idea of the users, a whole range of information. I don't support them, but nevertheless, there could be some advantages. I don't know if you can comment on those points, perhaps.
Just in regards to, through your worship, just in regards to your second point, I mean, Smoke-Free Aotearoa 2025 is aiming towards getting down to sort of 5% or less of the population that are either using smoked tobacco products or vape products. So I don't have the data on me to look at how that's tracking towards 2025, just only through what we've done to put our policy forward, so apologies for that. I can get that data and provide it at a separate date. In regards to your third point, look, there are no regulations at this stage on the shops and the way they go about, or people that go in and use them. So, like I said before, there is the amendment bill for vaping that is going through and making it harder and harder for shops, and then ensuring that they are complying with the standards that have been set. So again, around reducing the nicotine levels within the vape products and making them less attractive. They've already gone through and taken away the products, ensuring they're not coloured. So making them sort of, nice and jazzy for young people, seeing sort of bright colours and that sort of thing. I guess the next stages, next iterations of it will be around the marketing side of it, which they've already started looking at, and also the shop front displays and that sort of thing. So that's a progressive piece of work that's going on through that amendment bill.
You could just, it's not our job, but is it possible as this progresses that we could get more sort of statistical information that we know the size of the problem, whether it's shifting and so on, just for future reference?
Yeah, so through your worship. So as part of our forward planning, we have the joint working group which will continue on. They've invited in the Māori health providers, Cancer Society, Hawke's Bay are also part of that group, DHB, and looking at sort of widening the group as well, so to incorporate Ministry of Education with the issue with the kids in schools and that sort of thing. So as we sort of go into that, what that next stage looks like, that's part of the planning and part of the considerations we'll bring back to for the next iteration of the policy.
Thank you. Last speaker, Councillor Barber.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the kōrero about health providers, Māori health providers. We don't have to be health professionals to see what these things are doing to communities. I mean, if you get caught vaping at school, you might get a warning, but then you eventually you're going to get excluded from school, and that happens every day. And a lot of these kids are Māori, tauira Māori, and if you're not at school, well then, you're missing out on opportunities. So it goes wider than just a health issue. These vices are impacting our communities' well-being, in a broader sense. So I got no issues telling those Māori health providers where it's at, because we see it and the impact that it has on our children, and the impact that it's going to have on their future. So I support, acknowledging that I do see kind of vaping and smoking in the same kind of kōrero kaupapa, and yeah, we just need to have less access. If you stand outside a vape shop and watch that for 10 minutes and see the types of people that are coming in and out, these are the people that are having the biggest challenges in our communities. And vaping on top of that it just leads to negative outcomes on top of everything else, poverty, on top of not being in a whare, on top of lack of education. So I'm just saying it's a broader kōrero. It's not just a health kōrero. So Māori health providers can have their whakaaro, but community leaders will have our own whakaaro about it.
Kia ora, Baden. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, no, sorry, I do need to say something because I'm going to vote against it, so I sort of want to explain why, and it really is because fantastic all the work that has been done, but I want to send a signal that it's not far enough and that more has to be done in this area. So applaud all the work and everything that we are putting in place, but it just does not go far enough for me.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
As seconder, I just want to remind council that we supported a remit to Local Government New Zealand, and the remit is essentially pushing back and giving councils the ability to limit the number of vape shops and things like distance from schools, distance from churches, like we have done with alcohol in the past. So I just wanted to flag that that is in process.
Yeah, I mean, our framework is very, very narrow, as Councillor Sears has pointed out, and I think that we have got a bigger picture here to think about, and that is the health and well-being. And we are community leaders, so we are all responsible. And I agree with Councillor Barber and Chair of Ngāti Kahungunu that this isn't just a matter that lies with health. It's a community well-being matter. So I think that while we've got something in front of us now, a lot of work has been done. We do need to think about this through our great communities and think about what else we can do, and let's feed back those actions through Mr O'Shaughnessy, etc., into that committee so we can revisit this. And it may be that it isn't a joint policy with Napier in the future. It may be the future council chooses to have its own policy for Hastings, because there is clear direction around the table that our councillors want to go a bit further than what the policy currently has. But I have got recommendations on the table, a mover and a seconder, and I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Thank you. Cool, thank you. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Letty, I missed you.
I just want to make a last point. Went over to Australia, and vaping is actually banned in Australia. In Queensland, and it's an $1,000 fine on the spot if you're caught in the city smoking or vaping. Sorry.
Right. So there are people taking stronger actions in various places. Thank you very much, Councillor Ollie. Right. Thank you. Can I take this? Welcome to Tony. This is a temporary alcohol ban application, item number 9. Yes, this is a spring carnival, and the team come. This is a recommendation from police. Yeah, that's right. Putting these papers together. Yes, the irony, absolutely.
Your Worship, this is a ban.
This is a ban?
This is a ban.
Yeah, ban just from the streets. Yeah. Tony, can you, do you want to add anything to your papers? Pretty self-explanatory. Thank you. Councillor Nixon, you happy to move it? Seconder, please, Councillor Redstone. Any further comment? I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you for your work. Welcome to James. And this is parking controls. And James has brought us several different changes, a few additions and a few revoking areas. Time limit changes. Did you want anything to your paper, James? No, thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Sholham.
Thank you, Worship. Just checking Hastings Street's southwest side, that any particularly new businesses around that area were consulted with, just making sure they've had a chance to say what they think about us removing some parks.
Thank you, councillor Shine.
Yeah, sure. So along with Toi Toi, we came up with the best solution that would service everything in that area. The suggestion obviously was a loading zone, drop-off zone, which obviously for the municipal theatre, we can offload children, buses safely without them having to park somewhere else and bring large groups over. The service lane that accommodates all those new businesses was a perfect location to have the service vehicles parked there as well and service all their goods and needs through the service lane, which is right there.
So, if I may, Your Worship, just following up, I absolutely understand the logic, and I've driven past and had a good look, and I can see exactly why you've highlighted that area. But again, just checking that we've had a chat to those businesses around there, and they haven't assumed that those parks are staying, and then we're going to whip them away.
No. Along with Rachel Stewart, she consulted the businesses.
Perfect.
Along with Hastings Street as well as Heratonga Street as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions. I think I may have asked this before, but I can't quite recall. With the need for a mobility space assessment, how is that actually done? I mean, is there a sort of formula, so many mobility spaces per parks or location? Or, yeah, I just want to understand and make sure that we are completely sort of in line with the disability recommendations for car parks.
Yeah, sure. So originally, in the original layout of Heratonga Street, there was a mobility park there. With all the new developments in the area, we still had to re-establish that parking bay. Along with Rachel Stewart again, they moved it just a few metres down. Usually they're the first or last end parking spaces. We can accommodate a bigger surrounding for those people as well. We do have two already mobility spaces on Eastbourne Street, on the corner of Eastbourne and Hastings Street. So it was just re-establishing the mobility park that was taken away and put back.
Okay, just to follow up, a couple of questions. Thank you for that. I suppose what I want to understand though specifically is that our CBD is disability, favourable. There's been an assessment done that we have the required or the recommended numbers of disability parks per parking area spaces. Is that, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, councillor. Yes, you did ask that question, whether we had a ratio.
Yes,
and John Payne has been looking around the various councils as part of the parking study, and then we're going to come back and make sure that we've got the numbers, but also he has regular meetings with the various disability groups to make sure that if there's demand or change, that we're going to come back as part of the parking study and say, look, councils across New Zealand have this ratio, but also it's just a case of being flexible too to change them and move them around, and that's what James gets involved in. So we'll come back with what the councils do, and then council can decide what kind of level they want to provide in that.
Thank you. Just one more question. In Russell Street, I note that some of the car parks are going to be converted to lease car parks. I just want to understand in terms of weekends when we might have Blossom Parade or any other special events, can they revert back to normal car parking spaces?
Yeah, sure. There's usually a TMP put in place when big events like the Spring Blossom Parade happens, so that whole area can be cordoned off, and the warning ahead for the lessees are notified.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. But in general other special events where those are required for car parking, perhaps the Blossom Parade wasn't a good example in this instance. Are they available for parking? Can they be a cross-purpose car park? I suppose that's what I want to know.
If there's a demand for it, at this stage that site was located and was best suited to house lease car parks. We have a long list of demands for lease car parking, and this was identified as such a perfect area for that. And obviously a survey was carried out It did come back as unutilised. Okay.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, John's also looking at possibly a day-night use of car parks. So when you get a lease car park, you may only get it during the day, and it may or may not cover the weekend, because we're going to have to look at different ways of managing our demand. Thank you. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. Councillor Watkins?
Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Sholem? No further questions or comments of James? Thank you. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Item number 11, welcome Mark Clues. We have the summary report from the Coastal Hazards Joint Meeting. And any councillors who have been part of this who wish to speak from the Working Party, very welcome. Welcome, Mark.
So, Your Worship, this is a pretty standing item. I just should take this one as read. Happy to answer any questions. I will just point out for the council members that are on the Joint Committee that, of course, the meeting on the 29th, the statement report didn't happen. The next meeting is on the 15th of August.
Thank you very much. Councillor Redstone?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a question for Mark. Well, there's a little bit of a hold up in the process. Looking at 1.4, I'm interested to know how Regional Council will proceed if, who adopts the strategy, I guess is my question, because it looks to me like they have to adopt the strategy before they can go to their Section 16 full consultation. Yeah. So how does that work, Mark?
Yes, through you, Worship. That's exactly right. The strategy has to be adopted before the Section 16 process can happen. It has to be adopted by the Regional Council. But one of the discussions you're going to probably have in the next meeting or two at your Joint Committee is what level of sign-off you need from the Joint Committee members and their councils before that happens.
Thank you for that, Mark. It's very complicated in my book, so yeah, we'll see how that plays out, and I'm sorry about the delay because I would have liked to see this go through on this council, not in a new triennium. Anyway, we'll be happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Redstone. Councillor Nixon?
Yeah, thanks. Government yesterday made an additional announcement, and I just wondered, does this change any aspect of the paper, which was obviously written before the announcement was made? If so, what and how will we deal with it?
It's a very good question. Yes, we're just reviewing the government's proposed climate change adaptation plan. Well, it's actually not proposed. It is the plan. We've had a draft previously. It had a bit of a foreshadowing of what might be in it. So this came out yesterday. I'm sorry to the environment that I had to print it off, but I can't do 200 pages digitally. I need to resort to a few old school tricks in order to absorb it all. But from a quick look at these relevant passages relating to climate change and climate change adaptation, while I was sitting over there, I'm not sure that this takes us very much further along our understanding of what the government's role or what local councils' roles might be. But that is part of the action, is that those answers will come, but we don't have the answers today. And so we know further along than perhaps we were a week ago on that perspective. Other than we've got a bit of timing certainty, the climate change adaptation component legislation has been signalled that will be the end of 2023, so next election. So that will dovetail in a little bit, but not entirely, with consultation with our community on the strategy once we get to that point. If we keep to our timing, which would be consultation and through the Regional Council later on next year, mid next year.
Thank you, Mark.
It was
Councillor
not
Sears?
a trick question or anything.
No, thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sandra. I understand the requirements for the audit and the adopting the strategy before, etc., and I understand the need for consultation. What I don't understand is, does the consultation require the community to back it? Because I don't understand what on earth can happen if the community's voice goes against it. There isn't a fallback position, so I'd like to know where that leads.
Yes, well, the consultation will be with the wider community. So far we've had the community panels, which represent different aspects of people or communities involved in the coast, including some representatives from the wider community. But this is quite a large change and a large program, and we've been with this for a long time. Climate change has a habit of being like that, and so the whole community will need to get behind the strategy as well. And if they don't, then we will obviously have had some messages through that process, and it'll be a case of going back and saying, well, what's the strategy? How does it need to change to address those issues that the community saw in the strategy as proposed?
Just, can I follow up on that, Ms. Sandra? So the adoption of the strategy is a separate part of the consultation to who's delivering the strategy. Those are kind of two different questions. Is that right? Or they sit together?
Well, they are coming together. Obviously, the organisation that's going to take primary responsibility for funding or collecting the funds
yes.
Will need to be on board with the strategy.
Sure. Sorry,
thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Sandra, can I just so I really understand? So that's not in question, that the council that's being suggested to take that through the review process, that part's not in question. It's the strategy that's being discussed.
So the consultation process at the moment is about the regional council taking responsibility for implementing the strategy once the strategy is adopted. But it's almost an in-principle decision because the community, through the Section 16 process, need to understand what the final cost will be once they understand what the strategy is being proposed. So they get a couple of bites of the cherry along the way.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering whether someone can refresh my memory about the Memorandum of Transition and whether that was conditional upon the strategy being adopted by Regional Council or where that sits with adoption of a strategy.
Thank you. Good question. Bruce?
That is a very good question, and I'd have to have I've actually just opened up a memorandum of transition to familiarise myself, because it's been a little while since we looked at it, and I'll have to come back to you on that one, Councillor, just around the process, unless you've got it to hand, Mark.
Well, yes, the memorandum of transition is again, a step along the process. There's a memorandum of agreement that happens later.
Okay. I don't think we need to go into that level of detail.
Yes,
I think
it's quite complicated.
Yes, yeah. But there must be a simple explanation, and Bruce will bring it back to us. Thank you, Bruce. You happy with that, Melvin? Thank you. Councillor Redstone?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to add, this soft consultation is actually being targeted right along the coast. So all coastal dwellers are being asked to make a submission as well as the panel and others. And it's just an indication of what people on the coast think. And then when it goes to full consultation, it will go to the whole community.
Great, thank you. Thank you for enlightening us there. So I have a mover, Councillor Redstone, seconder, Councillor Corbyn. No further questions or comments. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Now, to Mr. Allen, to this fabulous paper on our meeting, and welcome to our Toy Arts and Event Centre team that are here. Lovely to have you here, known as the A-team. And Bruce, if you wanted to... oh, you've got a few slides. Oh, that's exciting. The wrap-up. And how exciting that we've got the past Mayor, Lawrence Yuill, with us, who started this journey. And sadly, Lawrence can't be with us tomorrow night as we celebrate returning this beautiful building to our community. And Lawrence started this journey in 2014, and it was, as we said this morning, when I was quite emotional, it was a very sad day when I remember where I was standing when he rang me, and he rang all the councillors to tell us what was going on. And here we are now, 8 years on, No one knew how much it was going to cost or how long it was going to take. But we today celebrate that we will welcome everybody back this weekend to these beautiful buildings that we have been gifted from our past forebears. Bruce, how's that for an introduction?
That's wonderful, Your Worship, thank you. So I think just before we kick off, and I think this this project deserves a bit of a presentation, and just by chance, the Toi Toi team have been working on a little video to help promote the spaces and the place that they've now got. So we can just play that to start with, and then we'll run through a quick presentation.
Sorry about the streaming, we need some new equipment in this chamber. Maybe the new council will invest in that, hopefully.
Yes, so we'll load that onto the hub because the quality of that is a lot better than what you just saw just there. So I think just quickly, just to bring this back, the council, you've made a lot of big decisions on the way through with this project, and acknowledging Lawrence here in the room. So back in when this building was closed back in 2014, the consultation that happened through 2016 and beyond. It was September 2018 that we finally got to the point of council deciding, yes, we have to get on and strengthen the municipal building, and that was primarily driven around the need at that point to open the Opera House, which was progressing well. And then 2 years later, we brought to you and you signed off on the Stage 2 redevelopment works for the municipal building. So it has been quite some journey, and some people in the room have been here the whole way alongside that as well.
Oh, really?
Part of as we worked our way through that, and I guess sort of in between those decisions of yes, we're going to strengthen, and this is what the redevelopment will look like. Council, you signed off on the strategic plan. The strategic plan's been incredibly important in really, as we've worked our way through the development of what the Stage 2 redevelopment will be, and ultimately what we've got today. Those success criteria, all the decisions that we've made and we've brought to you, you probably, you've seen it ad nauseum as I've reported back and asked you to sign off on each stage of the project. But those 10 success criteria or priorities are the things that we've really hung our hat on as we've worked our way through this. And I guess, you know, that vision of being the most vibrant and significant arts, culture and events facility in New Zealand, honouring the past and nurturing the present and inspiring future generations is certainly something that we think we're set, you know, the municipal building is set up for, and particularly how it integrates with the Toi Toi Hawke's Arts and Events Centre. And interestingly, just sort of working through this over the last few days, you know, sort of reminded that one of the key objectives and actions that came out of that strategic plan was to rebrand what was the Opera House, because what we had was the Hawke's Bay Opera House Arts and Events Precinct, is how it was referred to previously. So now with the Toi Toi Hawke's Bay Arts and Events Centre, we've got a brand that can go forward, and it's working really well. And also, really interestingly, the Independent Working Party gave this project the title, the Tihei Hiratonga, you know, the spark that ignites change. And it's interesting, I think one of the other items that came out of that also, and I think it was Ngahiwi Tomoana that coined the phrase culture-commercial as we're working our way through this. And I think, you know, where we've ended up with the municipal building pretty much captures that. So the financials, part of this report back to council was to acknowledge where this project landed financially, and there's still some costs as we're incurring. So this is not a precise actual amount. We're still working through the last of the costs to come through and be committed, but you know, it's extremely close to what the final outcome will be. Now, we've had some challenges as we've worked our way through this. You know, the construction contracts, because there's two of them, with GEMCO through the two stages. You know, they've worked incredibly hard to manage that within that fiscal envelope. You know, we've had some, you know, the issue with fees when projects go on. You've added more budget to that area. And then in August last year, we came to you with the final request for funding to do the final fit out. At that time, we had a reasonable idea of what was in front of us, but there was still quite a few unknowns. One of those was around the amount of additional work we needed to do in the base build and the base fit out to enable our tenancies to come on board. And there's had to be a number of decisions on the way through to support those tenancies and actually just take that a little bit further, generally in the space of you know, some core sort of infrastructure for them around additional, you know, plumbing, electrical, extraction for the restaurant and deli and stuff like that. So those decisions have been made on the way through to keep it going. When we presented to you in August last year around the costs that we thought we would be incurring, one of them was around the commercial kitchen on the first floor. I do recall Councillor Dixon saying, "You sure that's enough?" And I thought it was, and it wasn't. But I think, you know, as we worked our way through that, and Colton did a great job of pulling that together. But you know, that commercial kitchen on the first floor will be instrumental in ensuring that the spaces that we have up there, the Assembly Ballroom, the Shakespeare Room, can be fully utilised for a number of different activities. The decision, I think it was in May last year, that you made around moving the eyesight into the municipal building has created a whole lot of opportunity for us, and I certainly at this point really want to thank Naomi Ferguson, who's there, Greg Britton, who's outside working away, and Vicky Roebuck for pulling this together. You know, we had sort of some ideas around what we thought this needed to be around a modern eyesight, and they've absolutely captured that proposition. I think to the point where we had the national manager of Eyesight New Zealand in town a few weeks ago, and basically said, you know, this is the blueprint for what eyesights need to be across the country. Our tenants. So when council signed off on the stage 2 developments, and we had that, you know, the Can You Hear That campaign that we launched, I'm not sure we could have anticipated a better selection of tenants that have come and basically bought into the vision that we had for the municipal building. You know, they absolutely complement each other. They complement Toi Toi, and they complement the CBD. So really, I think you're just acknowledging, and a big thank you and a shout out to those 4 businesses, in particular, Damon McGuinness, who came on board very early on. It was probably about April, May last year, as we worked through. He could see the vision that we had for the municipal building. Sasha Vandenberg with the Arkina Gallery, Mike Henley with Cellar 495. Timing hasn't been that kind to Mike as we've sort of worked our way through this, but we're certainly looking at having his business opening in early September. And Christy Isaacson with the Long Island Delicatessen on the corner. Yeah, they've absolutely bought into council's vision, and the inclusion of those tenancies really meets a number of those strategic priorities that I talked about earlier. Yeah, they're enhancing the user experience that we have at Toi Toi. They're integrating with our CBD, and they're maximising the operational sustainability of Toi Toi, or municipal building, but Toi Toi more broadly. And really, I think just across those tenancies, we're yielding sort of something more of in the line of $135,000 of annual rental. And I think when we talk about the sustainability of financially of Toi Toi and the municipal building, I think what we've achieved with the tenancies and the spaces that are for hire, I think there's a good combination there of sort of sustainability from a ratepayer's perspective, but also creating spaces for the community. And in regard to those other areas, we're aligned with the strategic plan, but maintaining those spaces of the Shakespeare Room and the Assembly Ballroom have been incredibly important with the heritage nature, not on that screen, but the Tomato Room on the corner. I think it's going to be a really important and useful space for the Toi Toi team to book out. I know from a council's perspective, we're already using it. We're doing all of our training for the rollout of our new content management system, and it's really a great space for the team to be using. On the ground floor, the addition of the Tamaturanga Huata room and Cedric's. Cedric's is still in delays in getting the furniture in there, but that will be a really unique and cool space that the team will be able to book out. The streetscape. Rachel, yes, Rachel, good to see you. Thank you, and thank Colin and Gordon Tripp as well. Just the work, just a little bit of pressure put on to get this completed in the time frame that we needed it for the opening of the municipal building. I know it wasn't straightforward. I know your contractors did an amazing job to make it happen. And I think the story of the Makere Kitty that's been told in there is absolutely fantastic. I think we always come back to also that this building is a Category 1 heritage building as well, and I think the choice you made with the architects, with Matthews and Matthews, was a very good one. They've absolutely bought into this. Justin Matthews gave me these 4 points, which are in the report. You would have read them, but really they are the 4 things that they sort of came back to. And retaining the heritage nature of the building. Between them and Gemco, they've done a fantastic job of weaving that back in quite challenging spaces and activities to make it all happen. And there's been a little bit of interest about it as well. So this is the media interest from non-solicited media interest. So it's organically happened. Lots and lots of feedback, lots of interest, lots of news articles, and then there's the media interest that we've encouraged and sponsored, and there's more to come. Obviously, the Breeze will be broadcasting live from the footpath outside the municipal building tomorrow morning. And can't go through a project like this without acknowledging our partners. Gemco have been absolutely fantastic. Eddie Holmes on site has been amazing. As I mentioned, Justin Matthews from Matthews and Matthews, been the local part of that architectural firm here in Hastings, has been a fantastic person to deal with. Strata Group and Holmes Consulting, we look at the end product now and we see all the nice bits, the gnarly bits in behind, the strengthening works, the steel and the concrete. things we don't see that these two firms have helped pull together is huge. And I really need to big shout out and thanks to Herman Wismeyer from Focus Project Management. He's been involved with this project for the last 5 years and through the Opera House as well. Worked with Gemco, held them to account where required, but also been really solution focused as we've worked our way through all the challenges that we've had. And lastly, Your Worship, if I could just thank a few others, particularly I think thanking Council because you've given the direction to progress with this project and the guidance that was needed. We've had like the Independent Working Party and working groups on the way through, and I think Malcolm's got a file of information there from over the years. The community got engaged early on as well when they were consulted with this. We've had the Council Governance Working Group, Ms. Sandra, thank you. Councillors Sholem, Dixon, Harvey, thank you very much. It's been really useful to have those sounding boards as we've worked our way through the different issues that we've had. The project team, unfortunately Megan can't be here, but Megan Peacock Coyle, since she started with us, before the Opera House was even reopened and helped, was instrumental in the development of the strategic plan. Big thank you to her and you're right, Your Worship, the A team. Colton, Dane and Glenn, who was here but had to duck away. Thank you for just being there all the time, being really supportive. And actually, Dane, big shout out to you, mate. You've been here all the way through when the Opera House and the Muni were closed down in 2014. You were here then, and you never left. And you're here. You're still with us. So. The wider project team as well. Jennifer, thanks for keeping us in line in our project meetings. We've needed it. Will Kelsey from Comms, thank you very much. And Sonika Bota, so has been right at the very start as well, in behind the scenes, working with the engineers and signing off all the payments as we've worked our way through it. George Astridge, George, the pragmatic George, he's been the building inspector throughout the whole project. And to my group manager colleagues, Rebecca, in the last year or so, thank you for your help and guidance. And Craig, you did have more here when we started this project. But I'm not sure it was this project. So on that note, Your Worship, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Very well said. Now, Councillor Dixon has just got something to share with us. He was put as part of the project in 2015 as a relatively new councillor, and he was on the team, and he would just like to share some of his quick memories.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Yes, it's very moving. It's probably the most significant paper to be tabled at council since I became a councillor. I brought with me today a significant amount of papers for this most memorable and exciting journey. It was only me, Sandra and I who remained of the originals of the Working Party that was set up after the complex was closed on the 3rd of March 2014. Hutchison's moved out on the 30th of June and opened their new premises on the 1st of August 2014. The municipal buildings remained vacant while concentration went into the Opera House and functions on Hastings. What a journey it's been, and I thought it was very timely to acknowledge those who were involved and many who have not been mentioned before in this paper. Firstly, it started with Te Hei Heratonga, the consultation document. It gave us 6 options. Fix it or bulldoze it. Those were the options. Fortunately, the ratepayers told us to fix it. Well done, Lawrence. Yeah, Lawrence. You got us there. Secondly, they set up an original municipal building working party group, proposals for the municipal building, and it's got all the old photos through there. And I want to acknowledge these people because we spent 2 days together with Kim Thorpe, picking it all through and what was going to happen. Anna Parade, Henry Hickey, Michael Mackay, Charles Robertini, Jacob Scott, Peach Liza, Daniel Betty, Glenn Pickering, Sophie Wallace, Genevieve Beach, Ken Keys, Te Rangi Huata, Lily Fredrickson, Catherine Winitana, Tony McGibbon. And then there was the Opera House and Arts Precinct Subcommittee, Mayor Sandra, Adrian Pearce, George Lyons, and myself were the councillors, and Alison Banks was the minister responsible. And then one of the key messages that came out from the Kim Thorpe project was, it is not what area of focus is that we become renowned for, it is how we do it, and that will be our point of difference. We aspire to be for what's new and what's next, and to showcase the very best of Hastings, Hawke's Bay, and all the facets of what we do and how we do it. And I think we achieved that magnificently well. 5 of us went on a journey of exploration and learning. We went to New Plymouth. We found out that laneways could be a feature. That's what we brought back from New Plymouth. We went to Wellington. How to use lighthouses, how to feature them, what's happening, and link whatever you can with whatever you can. And I think we've managed to do that as well. In Christchurch, we went to the Isaac Theatre. The message from there was, showcase your restrooms, make people proud to go there. Own your own commercial kitchen. Went to the Oamaru Opera House. You should light up your building at night, showcase it, make it the feature of your CBD. Keep the lights on. We went to the railway station in Dunedin. It can become a home to many. Eyesights, restaurants, celebrate what you've got. And I think we've achieved that too. Along the way, there were some shock horror moments. The Opera House. We found out the 2 side walls actually had no foundations. The mosaic floor had to be lifted up. The foundations were sitting on riverbed shingle. The municipal building. We found out the support columns were only bricks and mortar, and the mortar had dissolved. They had no reinforcing steel. It will never fall down now when I've seen the amount of reinforcing steel around it. We were shown the roof, and some of you joined us. The conduit around the electric wiring had all perished. That had to all be replaced. The roof had leaked, the tongue and groove, and the plaster had just dissolved. We needed a new roof. But there's a number of credits to make along the way. Matthews and Matthews, the architects, they listened to the brief and they actually nailed it. They were wonderful to work with. Gemco, and I've mentioned Edie Holmes and his team, 7 years of sheer dedication and determination. They took pride in every piece of work they delivered. We'll always remember them for that. We've got our officers here, Craig Thu. His expertise was called on right from the outset. He lost his hair, but he's still with us. Megan Peacock Coyle, taking it all in her stride, and her team. Thank you for that. But last but not least, Bruce Allen. It was Bruce who became the pot of glue that held this entire project together. Without Bruce, we wouldn't be here today where we're at. He has been absolutely outstanding. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce.
Finally, Mayor Sandra, you provided the energy, the passion, the inspiration, the drive, the commitment to see it from the start through to its completion. Sincere thanks from all of us and from the wider community and the generations who will enjoy what Hastings now has to offer for the next 100 years. I'd be delighted to second the recommendations, Mayor Sandra, so I believe you need the privilege of moving them. Thank you.
So much, Councillor Dixon. Malcolm, that was absolutely a superb account, and after so many years, that was very, very important for us to be able to share that. You might like to come up, Malcolm. Before I move on to any further comments or questions from other councillors, Bruce, on behalf of us, Malcolm has said it all, that sit round here and have watched your leadership through this project. I'm not going to be too good actually. I'm trying to keep this being good for tomorrow night. But we know how hard this has been. We know how much money it cost, and we know how many people were involved. And we know that we had to do what we had to do, and it's wonderful that Lawrence is in this room here today. Because, and I acknowledge Nigel, because when he started, he knew too what we had to do, and that we need to find a leader to help us achieve what we wanted to achieve. And these projects are so big that people will never understand how big they are unless those who've been there day in, day out, month in, month out, to get the result that we see. And when I was down there with Nigel one day, and thank you, Damon, for calling the TV to account and asked to come down to have a conversation on TV1, this lady came up to me and she said, "Thank you, we can see what our rates have been spent on," and walked on again. And we stood outside our cafes and our beautiful eyesight and our gallery and our beautiful hospitality, craft and social, and all these people came and talked to us. But it's taken your leadership to make sure the project, the budgets, the day in, day outs, working with the contractors, the stress and pressure of the man, and I acknowledge Rachel, who had a broken wrist, and we watched him with his cast on, laying the pavers, because everybody wanted to open this weekend. But it took your leadership to pull everybody together constantly to make sure this happened. And on behalf of all of us here, we want to acknowledge you for your leadership.
Yeah, Bruce.
It's taken 8 years, that report. It deserved all of that, and thank you, Malcolm, for highlighting, and thank you, Lawrence, for starting us on this journey. I hope we're not going to go back to the budgets, but Councillor Nixon, you're the next speaker.
No, not the budget exactly. Yeah, I do have a question, but a very mundane question. But, and others have spoken far better. I remember that day when we closed it down, 2014 well. Lawrence was there, came in, announced to us the Opera House was closed. I think we went up to your office or something and did interviews and all that sort of thing. It was quite a day, quite a sad day. I have to say, Bruce, and I do give you a lot of credit for this, because you kept asking for more and more money. And I don't think I ever voted against any of it, did I? I'm sure I supported every element, even though I thought, when is this going to stop? I mean, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. I thought,
So Nixon.
We need our own printing press. But the point... Well,
no, we don't. We knew exactly what the budgets were buying. Thank you.
The point I want to make is that actually this shouldn't be seen in isolation, because it's part of what I would call the renaissance of Hastings. And you look at what's happening in another place of town, the Herald Tribune building, further up in the 200 block. There's a lot going on, but this will be the sort of cornerstone that will make it happen. Now the question, and I did notice there were some figures that you put out, Bruce, just where does this, I mean, is there cost to this extra that we will have to provide, or is there some slush fund that we can draw it out of?
Councillor Nixon, we don't have slush funds, and you know better than that, thank you.
Through your worship. So yes, so basically what will need to happen is that we'll use the reserves that we've allocated for this project, we'll use the rates funding that we've allocated, and any difference will be added to the loan funding approved. I think that's part of the recommendation.
That's right.
Last speaker, Councillor Redstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr Allen might like my question. I went to an event last week in the Assembly Room, and the windows, the cathedral-type windows there are just beautiful, and I'm wondering, can we save 26,500 and not have curtains?
Good. Through your worship, actually the curtains are an important acoustic treatment. You would have also noticed when you're in the Assembly Room in particular, that, you know, the acoustics aren't as good as what we've got in the functions on Hastings space. So actually the curtains are an important acoustic treatment that we think is necessary going forward as well.
We did have music and it was really good, so.
Thank you. Okay, well, that can be considered. Thank you. So I'm happy to move from the chair. Councillor Dixon has seconded. No further questions or comments. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, thank you, and very well done to the team. Thank you, everyone. I know there is a lot of people involved. Just before we break for afternoon tea, can we just go to item 14, please? 13. Just the replacement of 2 district youth councillors to subcommittees. Councillor Sholem.
Thank you, Your Worship. These 2 replacements or resignations have been requested because these 2 young people are so outstanding that they're just simply completely tapped out with their other commitments. Edu in particular is doing incredibly well with his acting, and so we should be wholly supportive of the fact that they've identified that if they can't put their all in, they'd rather not. The Youth Council have made the recommendations for replacements to this 2 subcommittees, and I wholeheartedly support those recommendations from them.
Thank you.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lawson. No further comments. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Item 14. This is the summary recommendations of Rural Hall Subcommittee. Councillor Kerr.
Very straightforward. Happy to move the report.
Seconder, please. Councillor Redstone. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. The Lagoima report from Louis Stettner and Councillor Sholem.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Sholem. Councillor Travis. Happy to second. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Now we move on to the schedule of meetings.
Happy to move, Your Worship.
Thank you. Have a seconder, please. Councillor Harvey. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. And now we have a recommendation here to go into a public excluded meeting. Could our officers please advise us on those agenda items why they would be in PX? Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, there's 3 matters in the public excluded section. They will involve either negotiations on behalf of council or consideration of business information either of council or other parties. And I also suggest as part of the recommendation that you allow advisory consultants and advisors to be in the room to assist with deliberations on those matters.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions, councillors? Thank you. Have you moved? Councillor Watkins has moved. Councillor Sholem has seconded. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. We'll break for 10 minutes for a cup of tea. Thank you. And thank you to the community who have been part of our council meeting today as we move and declare this part of the meeting closed. Kia ora koutou katoa.